It is Monday, February 7th, 7:10 p.m. The Commission on Disability Issues. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you, Lois, for the flag. We're going to first pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and to provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield. So I see we have Councilman Dombrowski. Thank you for joining, and Councilwoman Butt. And we have Bill Renaud. Oh, and Jen McDonald. Hi, thank you for joining.
Oh.
Jen, we have you on the agenda first. So if you would like to go ahead and just give us an update on the Intelligent Lives. You did the registration, it worked awesome. And I've got a few of us have registered, and that email is coming into the Commission's website. So it seems to be working.
Excellent. Since we're having some hosting difficulties, is anybody able to allow me to share screen?
That's going to be a bummer if we can't do that. Okay, it's host disabled, participant screen, host disabled participant.
Yeah, I think the host has to allow.
Why in the world can I not see that? I did not, I didn't sign in with the host code. That's part of the issue.
Marie, go to the, if you open up and click on the participants at the bottom, and then you have the whole list that goes on the right.
Yes.
And then at the bottom, do you see where it says claim host?
Now I do. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so.
Did that work?
We'll see in a minute. Yep, got it. Okay. I'm going to click on the live transcript. Okay. All right, so now Jen, share screen. You want to share?
I've also had where the host like makes me a co-host temporarily, and then I can share. I don't know if that's
let me see.
Way.
Make co-host. There we go.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we're looking at the web form. Yeah, everybody can see that? Okay, fantastic. So I'm logged in as an administrator, so I'm seeing some of these gray buttons up here that a typical user would not see. But this is basically how I set it up. It is live. If you want to go to it, if it's easier to go to on your browser, I made a friendly URL. It's wakefield.ma.us and then / and Intelligent Lives 2022. So you can put that on your marketing materials to make it easy for folks to find. So this is technically live so that you guys can play around with it, but it's not really findable. Maybe if you Googled it, you might be able to get to it, but it's not linked from anywhere. It's not over here on the sidebar. It's not on your page. It's just live so that you can see it. So I did add some of the information that was on your flyer, and then the form fields that you thought were important here. I can definitely make any updates you want if you see any edits. So a user would read a little bit about your event, fill all these out, and the red asterisks mean that it's a required field.
Correct.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to require phone and email. Sometimes that's a barrier for people to sign up, but it's also great in case there's a snowstorm and you need to cancel. So you can decide if you want one of those fields to be required. And then they just submit. And you know what, I'm just gonna put in some fake information here so that you can see the,
I think at least the email should be required, only because of of COVID protocols. I haven't been successful in reaching Tim O'Brien, and so
oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll follow up with him by phone tomorrow. I sent him an email, and I think I left a phone message as well. So I'll try again tomorrow.
Okay.
But I just, we really need to understand. I'm sure there are some, we need to know what the protocols are today. Obviously, things could change, but
Yep.
that attend.
Okay, I can make that. Oh, and you just saw, can you see my screen here where it popped up? It emailed me that the form came through.
Thanks for registering. Yes.
Did you see that? Okay. So I just got an email that I registered with my gobbledygook, but I can add your email address, whether it's the commission, whether you also want one of your members who's keeping track, so that every time someone registers, in real time. This is just the thank you page I made up. I thought there might be some helpful things, public transportation. This is about the film's website. This is your awesome resource page. Just thought I'd give it a little plug here.
Thank you.
So this is the thank you page. Again, this can all be edited. The good part is, and if I shared correctly, do you see an Excel form now?
I don't see the
No,
Excel
okay, hang on.
form.
Let me, I think I might have shared just the application and not my whole screen. Let me reshare. But anyway, when it comes time to be closer to your event, I can download just an Excel form. So if you have a check-in, so these are all the folks that that registered. So if you have a check-in list or anything like that, you can have that with you at your table. So I can send this to you at any time.
Okay, that's great. Appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Jen? Particularly for those who have registered. If you haven't registered, play around with it. So when will it be able to go live, Jen? Do we just give you the nod and then you can do what has to be done?
Yep. Like I said, it's technically live now. If you handed out the URL, people could get to it. But if they just go to the regular website, it's going to be hard for them to find because it's not linked from anywhere. So once you're comfortable, then I will, publicize it a little bit more broadly on the site so people can find it.
Okay. All right, that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I truly appreciate all the work you did for us on that. It would have taken me forever to figure that out.
Absolutely. And then I have the tablecloth. I don't know if you're still thinking about the tablecloth.
We are, and again, we have one quote, and I wanted to get a second quote just to compare prices so that we know whether, our first quote is in the ballpark or not. I think the one we liked was I think it was your very last one when you sent it to us originally. There was one on the very bottom that had, keep going. It's the one that has the seal in the corner. Oh, stop.
This one here?
Yes, that's the one I think that we've kind of zoned in on. So we will not do the QR code on the tablecloth. We'll do it as you recommended, in something laminated on the table itself.
Yeah, if you get one of those acrylic frames, you can get them at Staples. It's just 8.5 by 11 with a flat bottom. I'm just afraid if the natural wave of the fabric might warp the code. And also they're going to have to step away from you to take a picture of it, and you want them right here. So if you have it on a frame on your table, you might be easier for folks to see. But these aren't to scale really. I'll need whatever specs you get from the vendor you choose. So whenever you're ready to go, just send me the specs and you can tell me and I'll get the file, the art file.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
I have some more follow-up. I did reach out to someone from town, and we spoke, but he didn't send me anything yet to share. So, okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Jen?
No questions, but I just want to thank you tremendously. I mean, your knowledge has been a tremendous help to us putting this together, especially for me, who is pretty much computer illiterate.
I always say we're all good in different things. That way, when everybody gets together, you're amazing.
We're a team. Exactly.
Right.
Jen,
I'm certainly not good at what you're doing. So,
Jen, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Do you have a like an email mailing list that we can send this out to, or business contact list?
So what we do is on our website here. I'll give a little plug for everybody watching. Hang on. Okay, so this button here, Get Town News, you can actually sign up to get every news item sent to your inbox. In addition to, if you're super passionate about your commission or you really are interested in the historical commission, you can sign up to receive agendas when they're posted, and then you subscribe. So what we can do is post it as a news item, which anybody coming to the site will see anyway. But all of these things get emailed to all our subscriber lists as well.
Okay. And then we can put it out on the town Facebook page once we get all of that squared away.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there a way to also send it out to all of the other commissions and committees in town?
That's a great question. So they all have email addresses and they're all on here. So I could email, or I could just give you the list. It might mean more coming from your commission to your peers. I could give you the list of all the other, it's just the general mailbox, and hopefully they would forward it out to their team.
Right, and we could send it from the commission's website as well.
Yeah, I think it would be probably more meaningful to come from that mailbox.
Yes, I agree.
That would be great if you could give us that list.
Mm-hmm. I'll write that down. And then if you, when your poster is done, if you can send that over to me, if you have the native file, whatever you're creating it in, that would be helpful because I need to resize it because we have big posters in the kiosks. We'll get it up in the downtown kiosks as well.
Yep.
And then we have digital boards in town hall, and there's one on the common too.
I used Google, just my Google Slides to make it.
Okay.
So I can send that to you if your email is jennifer.mcdonald.
It's J McDonald.
Okay.
Can I chat it? No, we don't have a chat.
Yeah.
I know I was looking for that too, just to communicate with all of you that whether you could hear me, but realize we don't have a chat.
Okay, so it's J McDonald
at wakefield.ma.us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Jen. Very much appreciated. Okay, so Bill, you are up next.
Sure. So what would you prefer me to start with? So you had a couple things you wanted to discuss. ARPA funds, grant funding and play structures, And what else was the last one? The
voting concerns. Yeah,
want to start with the voting concerns?
sure.
Sure. So basically, I received a message from a concerned resident that portions of the voting were not accessible for the last round of voting that we just did. So I guess my understanding is that there was a change in sort of a change in venue, or where they keep it within the Galvin Middle School, and they kind of put it in a new location is basically what it was. So I've reached out to Betsy to let her know about the concern, and just to make sure that, you know, we have it in the same location, so that would, this way we'd still have access to all the handicap spaces and everything else. Any other change, then she'd have to notify me, and, you know, I'd keep it the commission informed of any changes that would need to you know, be accommodated.
I think one of the biggest issues was that it wasn't clearly communicated out that the location, even though it was at the Galvin, it was going to be in a different space at the Galvin. So
Okay.
I think people went there, and I did it myself. I pulled in off of North Ave,
Mhm.
and then kind of looked, or I had my mom with me, right? And so I wanted to get as close to the door that we had to enter as I could. And I didn't know where that door was, right? It wasn't clearly marked. And even once I parked, we didn't really know where to go. I said to her, come on, let's just go walking. We'll walk towards the front of the building and we'll figure it out. And it was in the front of the building, and you didn't realize it till you got almost there, and there was a policeman standing there. There was no, barely any signage that directed you where to go. And of course, it was, when I went, it was during drop pickup. So
Yeah, right.
the parents were parked along that drive. So there was no parking in there, and they were only the handicap spots that are typically there at the Galvin, which I think are like 2. So,
Right.
there really should have been cones with more parking, handicap parking spots, and better signage. So I think I said to you in my email, we talked about this at our last commission meeting, and it was suggested that maybe Betsy have a checklist of what is required for accessibility during an event like this, and so that she can just go down a list and check off the box. And I don't know, maybe she already does, but
I'm sure she does to some degree. I mean, there's whether this is explicitly on it. I mean, there's a lot of things that she's handling, obviously.
Right.
To make that happen, taking some of that off her plate would probably make sense. That'd be something I should tag in on. So, but that's something I'll definitely coordinate with her going forward.
Yeah, I would appreciate it, because this resident, this is the second time they've approached us about it, and they're not the only one that we've heard from in the past. So
Okay.
we need to get better at it, so that
For sure. Yeah,
you
this is
know,
the first I've heard. This is the first I've heard of it. So, but we're on it, and we'll make sure that we rectify that situation.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
May I ask a question? Sorry to be late.
Sure. Hi, Janice.
Hi. How many accessible parking spaces are there at the Galvin, and are they located in different places around the school?
Oh, I believe it's based on the number of parking spaces that,
Right.
that are in the lot, right? So I don't know off the top of my head how many we have. I would imagine at least 6, 4, 6, some in that range. I know that there's a few that are there's a little kind of a raised bump out crosswalk there. There's a couple there, but I haven't really gone through and counted them all out. But I can definitely take a look at all that as part of the next, the next wave of elections.
And are they located in different places purposely, so that, or should they all be located near the entrance?
It should be near the entrance. I mean, that's typically how it's done. If that's the main entrance to get in, that's where the spot should be. It should be the closest spaces to that entrance.
Okay. Is there a possibility of setting up some temporary accessible parking on election days?
Yeah, for sure. I think the only other thing we need to do is, so it's kind of like we did with those kind of the restaurant corrals. We added those ramps that we talked about. So I mean, those, we own those. So we'd have to deploy something like that so folks in wheelchairs would be able to get up on them.
Okay.
over the curbs, but that's definitely something we can roll out.
Great,
No
thank
pun
you.
intended. But,
Well, I
Thank you.
think we did at one of the elections because there was some, this issue of not having enough handicap parking space has been expressed in the past. And I think the last maybe large election we had, that we did have extra parking spots and there were cones, if I recall. It seems like we're not following the same protocol every time.
yeah.
And maybe because this last election, maybe they didn't expect as many people, so
Could be.
they didn't
Yeah,
feel that was a
I'm not quite
concern.
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'll make sure that I'm plugged in on it and I can at least take a peek at what they're doing and make sure
Mhm.
we have the spaces. I think the idea of a few extras are fine. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be coned off in a spot. It could be right next to the other handicap spots and we just have
Mhm.
them because we already have that accessible path. So that might make sense. But let me
Okay.
take a look at it all. And if you want me to report back on kind of the game plan going forward, I can do that.
Yeah,
would be
because
great.
we have another election coming up, when, the 24th? So, we want to make sure we hit all of these concerns for that
Mhm,
one.
mhm. And this
Understood.
one was also, my understanding is that there was an event for the teachers. And so all of the staff was at the school as well. And usually you don't have the parking spaces taken up.
Mhm.
So it
Okay, so,
was just sort of everything kind of came in together at the same time. There were a lot of things going
Sure.
on at the school.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not really plugged in on the all the planning of the elections, obviously, in my role. So, but I'll talk to Betsy about it and make sure that, I'll take a peek through before she, as she's prepping for the, for the next one, and make sure that we hit all these items. That shouldn't be I don't see, it doesn't sound like a heavy lift to me, so I'm not expecting it to be much of an issue.
okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, so you and I spoke briefly about the AARP grant, and your sense is that it's a lot of work for not much money, so it's really not
Yeah, I
worth
think I see it more
pursuing.
than it's a national grant that you would be applying for. So really, it's from what I've seen, most of the awards are in the $10,000 range. So that doesn't really provide us a lot of money to do much of anything.
Much,
So
right.
yeah, I don't see with that really being a worthwhile effort. I mean, it seems most of them have been more towards social service type projects and things of that nature. Some have had some accessibility pieces, but we're pretty active here already with going after a ton of grants. So, and improving accessibility around town. So I think that would, we basically included for the most part in any grant funds we get now. So I think it makes more sense for our staff to focus on those larger grants. Personally, we just put in one for a Mass Trails grant to cover some of the Envision project that has a ton of accessibility components to it. We're actually looking at going after some ARPA funds for that upper common section that was in the plan. So around the Rockery and that whole area, that would provide a lot of accessibility enhancements. So that would be a pretty major one for improving accessibility to town hall, to the library, and to the post office down there. So, I think that would be a place to focus on support potentially as
Okay.
the town starts to decide on where we want to spend the ARPA funds. Right now, we're pulling together a list to provide to Steve for him to bring to the council for them to make a decision on how to fund and what they want to fund. So, we're definitely looking at upper common as one opportunity. There's been some other asks, I know for some social services stuff, which I'm sure will probably get funded too. The commission has also said that they might be interested in something. So, depending on what you're looking to have funded, we could discuss that too today if you'd like to.
Well, I think one of the items, and I don't know if this falls within those funds, is, Lois has been advocating for quite a while to see a accessible swing down at the playground at the lake. I don't know if that's something that
Okay.
would fall under these funds.
So portions of that are accessible right now. So I talked to our park and tree folks today about this and prep for the meeting. So right now we have accessible components at the Walton, at the Lower Common playground, and at the Maple Way playground today. That's already been installed. And then as we go through for the next 3 years, the schools are asking for funding for playground upgrades at different schools. Woodville is actually funded in fiscal 22, and that does include accessibility components to it. So, you know, if there's something specific that we're looking to do, I think those could easily be rolled into a future capital request with the schools, because it all basically still funnels through Public Works to construct it. So we're involved. So we can make sure that that happens for everything going forward. Specifically, if it's a swing at the Lower Common, that's something I'm sure that we can look into as to what the funding cost would be, and if that would be the priority that the commission would like to ask for. I don't think that would be a problem.
Now, Janice, you had mentioned that you understood that at one point Walton had such a swing, which they are no longer using, you think,
when we
many
did,
years ago.
Yeah, when we did the fundraising. My gosh, let me think about this. Let's see. Probably 20 years ago, the Walton School Playground was built with an accessible surface and several accessible elements. Can you tell my kids went to Walton? And there was definitely a swing at the time. Carolyn Barrett was one of the students who was going to school there, and we purchased an accessible swing and actually there was like a seatbelt that went on it, and we gave it to Carolyn's mom to use whenever she was down at the school. But it existed. I don't know what exists there now. I assume that the same surface is still there because it was permanent. I assume the ramp is still there. And checking with the Walton School to find out if they dumped the swing or if they still have it. And
no, they definitely still have it. I think what they're looking, that is in the cycle for replacement though too. So when that comes through, if there's a specific, if there's a specific play component that you're looking for, but like, for example, if I can I share my screen right now?
Let's see.
I'd love to be involved in that discussion.
So I can show you what they did. So I got this for the plan for the Woodville, and this is typically how they come to us. If I can share.
Find you, Bill. Hold on a minute.
No problem.
Okay.
But also there were a couple of other hands up too. I just wanted to, Marie, make sure that you saw them.
Okay, I did not. Go ahead, Bill. Hopefully you can get on now.
I can. All right. So let me share. So here is the play structure. So can you see my screen showing the plan of the play structure?
See it, yes.
Yeah, so down in the lower hand corner, so this is what was submitted to us. I want to say back, it would have been like late fall because we weren't able to get it in prior to the snowstorms. We had to push a little of it off, but they do include basically a bunch of components that are accessible by different ways. So they have accessible by transfer, level components at the ground, ground level components, and then accessible ground level components. So they are looking at that on every delivery that we get. If there's something else that we should be looking at or that you would recommend us to include, we'd be happy to include that for future ones for sure, without a doubt. This just if I can pop up, this is basically what that play structure looks like.
Do you also take
nice
ideas about things that we would recommend against from a safety perspective?
Sure. Yeah, I think we would look at all of those. Yeah.
I was the playground safety person for the state for 5 years.
Oh, that's great. Well, obviously you're a great resource, like Jen was saying.
So I see some things that sometimes make my heart stop a little bit. And that's really my recommendation. If that you're a parent and you walk up and your kid goes on it and you feel and you catch your breath because you're anxious about them being on it, that's a good sign that that's not a safe component. Sure.
I think with this one,
that's awesome.
There's a lot of the fencing and stuff to keep everyone somewhat safe and whatnot. And then they can get on the different pieces at the bottom and the lower end. So, I I was surprised when I dug into this a little bit that we were this far ahead with the plan and the program, and that we actually were doing all this. So, so I think we have a lot of this stuff covered with our normal purchasing process. But again, always looking for feedback. So if you think there's something else we need to do, I'm happy to send this to you separately if you'd like to take a peek through it and give us suggestions. We'd take that if that would help. I mean, this one itself is already purchased and this is going in, for the future ones that will be installed in the next couple fiscal years.
And what's
we
the
definitely
ground
need to-
surface?
It's it's supposed to be that rubber material, that hard rubber material. Well,
Is
not
it
hard,
a poured in place or is it a,
poured in place? Yes.
okay.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why it didn't get in, because the weather turned it got too cold, and you have to be above 40 for the entire day, and we had a little bit of a cold snap that came in the fall. So
It's big.
it's a big one, yeah.
It looks
Definitely isn't
big.
small. That's for sure. So yeah, so I think that
Question.
covers the yeah.
All right, well-
I have a question here. Looking at this, and this is supposed to be the model of what's going to be in there. What is accessible to somebody who has a mobility disability for this?
So I would assume it's these lower ones down here, because it talks about on the other one about being able to access from, the lower levels, right? So if you wheeled up,
Access.
you'd be able to access these climbing pieces if that's what you wanted to try. That's how I was taking it.
I was trying to see if behind
Does
this climbing thing that looks like is there a ramp on the other side? Trying to figure out if that gray thing that's
It didn't call
behind.
out a specific ramp piece.
Okay.
I guess that's from what I've read is that's based on the size of the play structure. When you get to a certain size, although this seems awfully big to me, but I'm not a play set, expert by any means, but
So this would need to be somebody that had upper body strength versus are there play elements that are actually at ground level?
yeah. So it did note that on the other piece that there are ground level play components. So I'm assuming that's what they're talking about with the different types of ground level components. There's 3 of them. And then accessible ground level components are 4. And then elevated components that you could access by some type of transfer would be 7. So if there's something else that we need to be thinking about, I'm happy to make sure that we incorporate that in anything going forward. Or if we wanted to look to retrofit something, typically those retrofits, the cost to do those is pretty expensive. I don't know if it's worth the funding per se, but if it's something that we think is definitely needed, then we can make it happen.
So Janice, would you be willing to work with Bill to just give him some feedback based on your expertise? You're on mute.
It's going to be my new name. You're on mute. Going forward, sure. It sounds like this is already purchased.
This one is, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's I'm really happy to hear about the surface, that it's going to be a poured in place surface, because that makes a huge difference in accessibility. But I think it's hard to see from that drawing that whether or not something actually is at the ground level that a child who cannot transfer and who a child or an adult who can't transfer, or somebody who needs to have the element at full element, not get over to the ropes and then climb the ropes, but the full element at ground level. So the Walton has a couple of things that are at ground level, and then it has a ramp going up to several other things that are at an elevated level, but there's a ramp.
Okay.
You probably know that.
Yeah, because that's what I see is that this really isn't ramped throughout so that it's not fully accessible to somebody who has a mobility impairment.
I'm trying
Hard to
if
see.
there's
There
anything.
might be something that somebody could wheel up to that is at ground level, but I think it's kind of hard to see, but I don't think there's much.
Well, according, I mean, they're telling us that there are, so there's at least 3 components of this that are.
Mhm.
What those 3 are, I mean, I can get information on that so you folks know for the next meeting, but if there's an area, I guess maybe concerned this has been purchased already.
Mhm.
Going forward, we can make sure that the commission's involved in at least, identifying any other add-ons to it before it's purchased, for sure.
Yep.
As action items. And then if there's a retrofit location that we wanted to think about, that might be an opportunity for potentially ARPA funds or something else, if that's what the commission wants to request. I can incorporate that in my request from Public Works.
I think that probably the most important playground to have some accessibility components is down by the lake.
Okay.
So that's, we've gone through a few playgrounds since my time. There was a toddler playground and an older children's playground, but in the neighborhoods to have some accessible places, and then to have people know, maybe on our website, it might be something that we
Good point.
talk about.
Yeah,
Is
I was
where, I
thinking
mean, I literally couldn't find Walton School when I was getting ready to
right.
enroll my children. I'm like, how do you even get there?
Yeah.
And I'd already lived in the neighborhood for a few years and I didn't even know where it was. It's really tucked away. So if you did not know that the school was down there, there'd kind of be no reason to go down that road. So I'm thrilled that playgrounds are being redone. I think that's great. But maybe we can have a guide to what's accessible and where can be something that we develop for our website.
Yeah.
That would be fun
That makes
when
a ton of, yeah, makes a ton of
when
sense.
it's
to me.
warmer.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do we want to think about a retrofit, or are we? I mean, we have other ones that will be constructed soon that will be, fully integrated, but if there's a retrofit piece that you might want to add on to one of these, we can look into that if that's something that.
Who designs this?
Well, basically, the schools request, a replacement at a certain dollar amount with input from. So it's basically Public
Would it
Works
be
is the one
helpful,
that will
Janice,
purchase.
if you looked at this in more detail, you might be able to figure it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like the sky view is not as helpful as the ground view.
Yeah.
Because there might be some things that are underneath some of these platforms that are at ground level. We just can't tell.
Yeah, I mean, what I can do is I can get other, some other views sent to us, I'm sure, for this. But again, this is already purchased and going in. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if we're thinking that the lake is the priority and this is something that we can look to retrofit, although we have some that are already there, according to my park and tree folks. I can report back on what that is, and then
That would be good.
it's just I'll be submitting something to the council before your next meeting in all likelihood. So.
And what O'Brien and Sons calls accessible, what we heard is that, being able to get up, get to an element and then climb it. For people who can't climb, that's not accessible. So what they're allowed by law to call accessible is not necessarily what folks would call accessible. And I think it would be great to get input from families who have children with disabilities to figure out, well, what would you like? And just get some components named. It's a really reputable company. But anyway, so I'm talking too much and I'm going to stop talking.
I'm just trying to identify next steps. So we'll definitely include you folks in the next discussion on the equipment purchase for sure. Aside from that, and then just identifying locations and adding that to our website, that's something that we can definitely look to move forward to within the next couple of months. And I think as soon as the snow goes, I can actually get out there and double check things. But
Right.
Yeah, if that's something that the commission wants us to do, we can do.
And when do you have to have your input to the council for the ARPA funds?
I think we're looking at next couple of weeks.
Okay.
We got a couple of councils here. Does that sound about right, folks?
I know it's an ongoing dialogue, Bill. So I think we are trying to narrow things down a little bit, but there's still plenty of community input to be had.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't committed any of the money. I know we can't share in the chat, but there's a survey that's been going around. I know it's on our website, and I would, encourage all commissioners to fill out that survey about priorities. I think that's something we're going to look at. So I can send it. I can send it to you, Marie, in an email, and maybe send it to the commissioners. I think that, putting things like playground accessibility that should be on the list, not only for ARPA funding, but I think our capital projects that we do every year, which is, a lot of what Bill's talking about. And I know I've talked about this issue a lot with the Benjamins. I think it's to talk about accessibility with our playgrounds, a really important conversation. And what other towns are doing is not just considering like physical disabilities, but looking at, sensory disabilities, like thinking about some things for sort of other disabilities. And I think that's really important for the commission to think about too, as we upgrade playgrounds at the schools and at, JJ Round. Arlington, I've talked to Dan McGrath a lot about this. Arlington is just doing such a great job with some alternative sort of playgrounds. So something to think about. I don't think definitely fill out the survey, but also know these are conversations that we continuously have about playgrounds and accessibility and what accessibility means. And so, find creative funding, whether it be grants as Bill mentioned earlier on, or capital funding.
It's wakefield.ma.us/ARPA, by the way, ARPA.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
So Marie, anything else on my end?
I think the only other item was the Floral Way. I had hopped on the Historical Commission's meeting, their last meeting, and I guess you were scheduled to be on, but they tasked you to go look at some other things. So
Correct. Yes.
I guess the bottom line with that is I got on the call just to let them know that, we're aware of their concerns, and that, we're certainly going to work with them to advocate for their concerns as well as the accessibility concerns. And I know that you're aware of that and that you're working to solve both of those problems as well.
Yeah, I think we can find a balance of them. I had a really good conversation with Nancy prior to the meeting, and she gave me some good direction on really the area she wants to focus on. Really, she wants to see some type of gravel material that's there, as opposed to even a manufactured. So one of the things that I've used in the past is a rolled stone. And I've used that when I was in Concord, in front of the Emerson House, as well as a couple of other historical areas around town. We also used to use a stone dust that would be blended with some concrete that would hold together. So what I'm trying to do is find a balance between them. The biggest concern I have is just because of the slope there. I have to flatten the slope out to get the accessibility to keep under 5% and make this, accessible path down to the park and everything else down there. So at the slope that it's in, I'm just concerned of erosion. So I'm trying to minimize whatever that would be for lake health. So trying to find all three of those balances, and I'm sure I'll get there. I've been going through for the past couple of weeks, a bunch of different vendors trying to find different products and where they've used them. Right now I'm looking at something that was used at Monticello at DC. So we're going through, or that'd be Virginia, I think, right? But that they're using down there. So I'm scouring the country for a material that will work. I think we're going to get there. So it's just going to take me probably a little bit more time than I thought. So
Great. Lois,
yeah.
you have a question?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
Bill, I got a question.
Sure.
My question is there any possibility of getting funds for closed caption? WCAT, I think would be willing to get involved with that. I know there was a person that I was at something going on in town. It was one of these things. Anyways, I'm having trouble explaining myself. Sorry. the people that can't hear.
Mhm.
I know I did meet somebody that I know, and she asked me, well, it's great to have WCAT on, but if you can't hear, instead of having to pay people to come in,
Mhm.
my thought was possibly to look into a grant for, okay, we CAT does do replays all the board my words, all the
Meeting?
board meetings. I'm sorry. Anyways, because these are played on WCAT, which I watch a lot of, this person can't hear them. Is there any possibility of a grant that when they show things on WCAT, is it possible for a grant to have that with WCAT's broadcast of things that, example, the meetings that the council,
Mhm.
everybody can see that, can't hear it. When they replay them, people don't know what's going on. There's a lot of boards in town, and in order for somebody to know what's going on, and a lot of people don't get the paper.
Yeah, yeah. So the way we've set it up, Lois, is that folks can reach out to me if they like a meeting to be transcribed, and as long as I have enough lead time in front, they let me know a few weeks ahead of time, a couple weeks ahead of time. I do that. So we did that for town meeting in the fall,
Okay.
and hired somebody to take care of that at a nominal. They did it off site, and they were able to transcribe the meeting in real time.
Okay.
If you're looking to do it for like a replay, that would be obviously a lot cheaper. Grant funds specifically, nothing comes to mind necessarily. I don't think it's something that we would be able to routinely get. Let's put it that way. If we were to do it, it would be sort of a 1-year thing, and then we'd have to look to fund it as a town. But yeah, I mean, if that I haven't been requested that, but that doesn't mean that the people haven't reached out.
If I talk to somebody at CAT,
Mhm.
see what their thought is, would they have a problem playing closed caption?
No, definitely not. They actually worked with me for town meeting. So I worked with one of the folks over at WCAT.
Right.
Yeah, so they would definitely be helpful on that.
So there is an expense to that, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it depends on which way you go. So we do the closed captioning here. Well, not really closed captioning, but we do the transcribing of it, right? That happens through the, but there's a lot of, I would say mistakes and whatnot. But somebody that's actually doing the transcribing, it's basically like a court stenographer that does it.
Right, I know, I've seen that.
So you have to basically have one of those folks, remotely do that. That can get very pricey if we're doing it for every meeting in town. So
Right.
if there's a specific group or meeting, that would
Okay.
make sense. But obviously we don't want to disenfranchise anybody. Everyone should be able to participate. So if it's a need, we should be able to make that happen, and we're obligated to.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking for people at home, because I have talked to several people, and that was one person that I had seen, and she had said, well, it's great, but it's not helping me if I just see the people on the screen.
Mhm.
And so if maybe like the grant or a grant or,
Let me talk to the folks at WCAT and see what options they think that we might be able to work out.
okay, and there's also an expense to WCAT. Right?
Or the town. It's an expense to somebody. Yeah.
Right. And what about the guy in Boston? There's somebody, I can't think of his name. Jeff Dugan. I wonder if he would know about any grants for that. I could get
Yeah.
I
I mean,
could
it's
get
an
in touch
option.
with him.
Yes, Lois, reach out. Why don't you reach out to him? Because you've connected with him in the past
Yes, I have.
and see if he can, give us some guidance.
If you don't mind, I don't want to step on toes.
Nope,
but
please go right ahead.
it will make it easier for somebody else. I would like it.
Yep, go right ahead, please, if you would
Thank
reach
you.
out to him.
Thank you for my
Sure.
my words. Mixed up words, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Does,
just one more thing, but Bill.
sure, go ahead.
Just a quickie, and I know it's not gonna be good. I got a question. The snowstorm was really a great snowstorm, but guess what? Where did the 137 have to stop? Right opposite on the other side of the street. And 137, it wasn't plowed out, nothing.
Okay. Where
It
was
was
that?
right down, it was right down where 137 goes to go down. Oh, okay, it's right across from farmland. Right at farmland,
Oh,
it was
okay.
shoveled. And then also on the other side of the street, it really wasn't even shoveled out. Anybody could get out to get onto the bus. And
That's interesting. Well, so that, yeah,
I apologize.
That's interesting. So part of that is related to, we have a bylaw for snow, so any business is required to essentially shovel off the sidewalk in front of their business. So, but let me take a look into what happened specifically there. I know we do snow removal. I'm assuming it was removed with the last removal.
It was not.
It wasn't? All right, well, let me look into it. I can talk to Joe about that and talk to our snow folks.
So who's responsible? I understand we spend a boatload of money through for having the buses, and they're supposed to be taking care of the place where the bus stops. And that's not happening.
Yep, that's true.
And okay, so anyways, I don't know who's responsible, so anyway, we can find that out. I mean, not that I care of who it is, but it should be taken care of.
Sure, yeah, we'll get to the bottom of it.
So is that the town or is that the bus or the MBTA?
I believe it should be the business that abuts it. Typically, that's how that's done here, I believe.
We paid like 600,000 for that to be done a year.
For snow removal, or for the bus to be here.
Snow removal, making sure the buses can get through, the people can get on the buses. So you might want to check that out if you don't mind.
Not a problem at all. Yeah.
I apologize for my questions.
No,
So
it's
Joe,
okay.
if you determine, if you determine that it is farmland that's responsible for that, then does someone need to send them a reminder?
Yep.
I
Their
don't think-
responsibility there?
I think that,
But if it's on the bus route, it may be the bus responsibility too.
Okay,
I'll do the research because there's a couple of other spots that weren't shoveled out that I noticed on the same route. So.
Because I called the MBTA. in the past.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
no problem.
Thanks, Lois. Does anybody else have any questions for Jen or Bill?
I just don't know if this is the right point, but I know we've talked about the ARPA funds regarding housing in the past. And just maybe some creative options, not only for people with mobility issues, but kind of like we were talking about with the playground issues, kind of with sensory issues, maybe intellectual disabilities or other things like that. And I just feel like that's something that should at least just kind of continue to have a conversation with, even if the ARPA funds are not going to necessarily be used for that. Just think it's an important thing for us as a town and as a commission to kind of constantly be considering and just thinking about, you know, the people who the school system invests lots and lots of money into making sure they know their community, that they're able to continue to live in their community. And kind of have all those natural supports that as a community we've worked so hard to put in place for them.
Right, good point, Paula. And I think that will definitely be one of our focuses once we get through this in Intelligent Lives. Because we have a lot of, obviously we have a lot of building going on here in town, and there are a lot of creative housing opportunities that we're not taking advantage of because we don't know what we don't know. And we could be creating housing in some of these developments, particularly the one at the head of the lake, for individuals with mobility issues as well as other types of disabilities. So we do need to stay focused on that.
The head of the lake does have accessible units being installed as part of it. That I'm aware of.
Right, but when you say accessible units, those are units that
Mobility,
somebody who has mobility issues. But you know, what about
Right.
People with intellectual disabilities who need support? You know, need different kind of
Yeah.
supports to
Oh,
live
definitely.
independently, right? And those are the,
Yeah.
I think that's the group we talk about. Handicapped, we typically talk about those with mobility issues, and it's a much larger group than that. And I think we need to start to include some of those other folks in the discussion.
What about,
Okay.
what about vision disabilities?
Correct. That's correct. Vision disabilities, exactly. There's a lot of other disabilities that we're not accounting for in those discussions.
And I think it's, creativity in the way they're built, it kind of the model, like Maria is saying. So I just think it needs to be, after Intelligent Lives, kind of an important part of our conversations going forward.
Right, and we're beginning to educate ourselves so that we know, you know, we're looking at what's being done in other, even in Massachusetts, out in Western Mass, down at the Cape. You know, obviously more land, more options, but it doesn't mean we can't try. We can incorporate some of this stuff. So we'll get smarter, and then we'll be able to better communicate some of these things.
One more thing,
Councilman
Bill,
Dumb,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Lois.
I was just gonna say, accessibility, but the head of a lake, did you say, Bill?
Yeah, they had some units that were being planned for as accessible units. I'm assuming that's related to mobility, is what I just said, but I'm not exactly sure. That's been handled through the ZBA process. So
Can you kind of send me something on that,
yeah, let me I'll look to see what they've included.
if you don't mind?
No problem at all.
Thank you. I didn't mean to barge in.
That's okay.
I know
Councilman Dombrowski, you had a question? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Marie, and it's good to see everyone tonight. I did just want to pick up on what Bill was saying about Floral Way. I've had several conversations with him, and I know that he is doing everything possible to find that balance, that make sure that we meet everyone's interest with that. So I know he's been working very, very hard on that piece. I was curious, I know you had mentioned about the election a couple weeks back now and some of the challenges that you found. Did anyone have any feedback or hear anyone mention about the entryway that was on the side of the building? Did that create any challenges for anyone? The doors themselves, because I don't believe they were automatic and in the same way as we would be accustomed to in the front of the building.
I'm not sure specifically that the door was stated. It was the walk to get to that door was something that was mentioned. And then the fact that once you got through that door, it was again a walk to actually, get up to the registration table and then get to where you actually went to vote. So all of that seemed to create an issue for some folks, who had mobility issues. But that's a good point, because I'm trying to recall, and I don't, you're right, it wasn't an automated door, it was just a door.
I don't recall it being automated. I noticed that, but I could be mistaken, but
I think you're correct.
I took note of that, where I know in the front, obviously, we have the automated option.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I don't think it was automated either. I actually think it was left open.
Yeah, you could be right, Lorna.
I believe it was left open. I think there was two. There was like a couple of different grades. So it was like paved and then not paved.
Yeah.
I went after dark. And so it just wasn't really well lit, and everybody was kind of trying to point everybody in the right direction. But I can imagine, and it might have been, I just took a shortcut, but if you were trying to like push a stroller or a wheelchair, it might not have been the easiest entrance to use.
I know our next election will be February 22nd. That's the special election.
22nd, right.
Now that actually falls during school vacation week, so I expect that the normal entrance will be used.
Right.
And then after that, we're in late April. I think it's the 24th or 26th for the town election. So those are the next two. So it sounds like between now and April would really be the opportunity to make sure that any concerns were talked about as well. I'm not sure what the plan is. I believe the plan is to use the regular front entryway as well. But if there are opportunities going forward where or need to use that side entrance, then we want to make sure we're doing it in such a way that it's better accessible than
Yes.
people experience. Then I just also wanted to mention briefly, Bill had talked about the rockery in that area by the library and the post office and town hall. And I'm sure we've all experienced it. I actually just saw someone, an elderly couple, going to the post office just the other day and having this issue. The way it's currently configured is incredibly dangerous. And part of the Envision project is to redesign that area with a heavy emphasis on it being more pedestrian friendly, better ADA compliance. And so I do think that if we're able to peel that project off and get working on that, I know Bill's been pursuing grants and the rest to make that happen. I do think it checks a lot of the boxes that would be important for this commission relative to ease of access, because a lot of people use the post office. A lot of people try to pull up and park right by the mailboxes to drop in mail, as we all know. And you back out of there, and it can be quite dangerous. I mean,
Yes,
I was doing it the other day, and it was rather harrowing for me to be doing it with a backup cam, because you have cars coming in different directions, and we improved it a bit by making common the one way, but it still hadn't solved the problem. And so a lot of what Bill was talking about relative to the rockery really addresses that and creates far better connectivity to the upper common, especially between the rockery, upper common, and then it really links to the post office and library and town hall in ways that we just don't have currently. And I think that's it's a really important element to that project. So I just wanted to highlight that.
And we've also got a letter into the one of the agencies to the U.S. government in regard to the door of the post office, because that is not accessible. And the folks at Wakefield post office were very amenable to working with us. It was their superiors that sort of shut things down. So they provided us with with documentation on how to go about pursuing that, and we've done that. So we'll need to stay on top of that as well.
But to have a ramp to go to a door then is not accessible makes no sense.
Right, exactly. And then you get to the top of the ramp and you can't open the door to physically get yourself in the door. So yes, it is ridiculous. But they
Yeah.
do have an accessible door in the back of the building. What is the door, the exact door we're looking for? It's in the back so that the postal carriers can easily wheel out their carts to get to their mail truck. So
They got their
Just like-
priorities apparently, right?
yes.
Underscoring that issue around the Rockery, though, I can't stress enough how significant I think those improvements will be.
Yes, they will be. And that's, I wasn't aware of that till Bill had mentioned it to us recently. So that's good news.
And keep in mind, this would also include one complaint that we did receive on Yale. So that the driveway for the post office was a complaint that we've received. If you're ever take a look at that driveway, there's actually a curb that goes in, essentially cuts off the sidewalk. So you can't actually be in any type of mobility device and go across that, that driveway. You have two vertical curbs on the other side of the driveway. So, I'd be looking to improve all of that as part of it too. So my goal was to bring basically the improvements up to that location to cover that other complaint or, service request, I guess, if you want to call it that, that's been brought to my attention. So.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully we get some of this money so we can do some of these
There you
things.
go.
Just curious, what are you going to do to the Rockery?
Well, not really changing the Rockery. It's more the approach itself and things around it. So it's essentially a realignment of some of the that walkway that goes up to it and smaller portions of the Rockery. So the road's being realigned to have the flow work a little bit better. So the road would now go Crescent Street as it comes in would go essentially straight across now to Lafayette. So that would be all connected in one location. Behind the Rockery would be a parking lot that is done with a special type of treatment. So it would turn into a parking lot rather than a through street for common that gets shut off there. So you'd have a more park space actually adjacent to the Rockery. You can actually walk to it and make it accessible. So if you've ever been there and walk to it, actually walk to it, there's maybe a 2 foot wide, 3 foot wide sidewalk that goes around it. That's all curbed. So this would provide access and accessibility to the Rockery itself too.
Right now, the Rockery is really an island. So if you're heading
Yeah.
from the Upper Common and then going to the Rockery, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere, you cross over, and to Bill's point, it's like only 2 or 3 feet of really a sidewalk, if you want to call it that, but it's really not even. I think it's asphalt or
Right.
something.
Right, just kind of
So-
a path.
Yeah.
Paved
and-
path.
So Lorna, if you look at the plan that Jen just popped up, thank you, Jen. That shows the dashed red line is what the Rockery limits look like today. So it's essentially that little walkway to get to where where the statue is. That and the fountain will stay in the same locations, and then just the outskirts of it will be realigned to fit with the roadway geometry a little bit better. And then you gain extra space behind it on the backside. So you basically get like a little park right next to the Rockery on the backside of it. So you can see the 3 little trees behind the fountain. Yep.
And then if you follow further down, just going south just slightly, you'll see where there's the brick, or the red colored bump out, and that's the post office there. So you can see how the traffic pattern would be very different than it currently is. You don't have the crisscrossing traffic anymore. It's very defined. It's a very defined driving path and a very limited one at that too. So it allows for people to be able to park and back out more easily. It doesn't have backing out into crosswalks like we currently have. It allows for a much shorter crossing path across Main due to the bump out. So especially folks who may have challenges going further distances, it makes it much easier to cross and safer as a result. So there's a lot of really good and safety improvements that are incorporated into that portion of the design.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, any other questions for Bill or Jen? Well, I thank you both for coming. Really appreciate
Thank you very
all
much.
your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ed, thank you very much too for being here tonight.
Ed
Happy
and
to.
Maureen, yes.
Yes.
We're
And-
gonna, with the time we
Oh,
have
yes.
left, we're gonna talk a little bit about intelligent lives. Ed and Maureen, are you familiar at all with that and what we're up to here?
Not enough, but I hope to be by the end of this meeting.
Okay, good.
Levon, do you have handy the flyer? That may be helpful. Oh, I'm gonna have to share.
Yep, I
Okay.
can bring it up.
Okay, maybe I'm sharing with too many people now.
She forwarded it to me. Do you want me to share it?
If you can, please, that would
Sure.
be great.
Yeah, I don't have sharing permission.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to do that. I'm definitely challenged today with all of this. Oops, are you guys still there? Yep,
We-
it says you are.
Yes.
Well, here we go again. I can't see anybody.
Oh. Can you
We-
see the screen with the flyer?
No, I just see.
Can anybody see the screen with the
hold
flyer?
on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can.
I can.
Okay, so members, I'm going to have to rely on you to just kind of give a little update based on that flyer till I can get myself back on here.
I can
Sure, I
talk
can give
about.
a little
Oh.
stuff.
Okay, go.
Sure, Paula or Levon,
Okay.
whoever. Please.
Levon is the creator of the
Thank
awesome flyer, which we
you.
so appreciate. Getting all the little pieces in there, not easy. So we really appreciate all her efforts on that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Intelligent Lives. It's a 70-minute movie, as you can see from the description there, just about kind of community and the need to give everybody the option kind of for an intelligent life. 70 minutes long. And then after the Intelligent Lives, we plan to have a panel discussion of some local businesses that employ people with disabilities and their managers, and kind of all the benefits of employing people with disabilities. And we also have somebody who has done a lot of like job development in terms of getting people with different abilities jobs. Jeff Gentry from Jewish Family Vocational Services is going to come and be part of that panel. So we're hoping to invite people from the schools. Like Levon had mentioned earlier, you know, we want to publicize it widely, and we'll be holding it obviously at the Galvin. So we have a good capacity of people to welcome. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
We're hoping this inspires some businesses in the community to hire people with disabilities, whether that's full-time or part-time, and make the community more of a visual inclusive community.
That is definitely the goal. Thank you, Paula and Lorna. And Paula, were you successful in reaching out to Whole Foods?
I wasn't. I was on like a chat with them online, and I just have not gotten the right email address. So I plan to stop in person tomorrow.
Okay. And then Darcy, you were checking into Shaw's?
Yeah, I emailed them, but I haven't heard back. So I might do the same thing, Paula, just go there in person.
Yeah, only because what I'm thinking is we don't want to heavily publicize this yet until we're sure that the companies that we've identified are, are going to be on board. Otherwise, that's going to, we'll have to change our game plan a little bit for the
panel.
Right?
I'm also wondering if Market Basket could also, if we might want to approach them as well.
I'm thinking if Shaw's or Whole Foods isn't able or unwilling, that we would want to do that. I don't know how, I think 3 businesses on the panel is probably going to be enough.
Yeah.
Just given the time we're going to have. So yeah, and I think we are going to need to really start our advertising early March to give ourselves, that would give us maybe 6 weeks before the event to get the word out there.
Well,
I think one
Market
thing-
Basket hires many more. They're just bigger and they hire more people, and they certainly hire more people with disabilities
Yeah, they do.
than Shaw's.
So you think that would be a
That's
better?
what I'm wondering. Yeah. So I'll try them too. I mean,
Okay.
can't, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you think, whoever you think you're going to be more successful with.
Okay.
And I think the option too, I know we had tried to go with places that had people who lived in Wakefield
Right.
at the different businesses. But I also think that because we don't identify the businesses specifically in the flyer, I'm wondering if we could, I'm hoping that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have that all ironed out. But since we don't name them specifically, I also feel like we could start publicizing and kind of get those pieces together
After
as
the
we get
fact.
closer. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just connect with that gentleman from the school department to iron out what our protocol, our COVID protocol should be. And then we can, go from there. All right, so. Right, so I think we're pretty good. I think the only thing, so Lavana's got the flyer done. And I think what we can do via email is to start to, we had already gone through a list of the organizations and individuals that we want to get the information out to, that we're going to personally invite. So I think that what we'll do is we'll divide that up and just once pretty much the flyer is complete, we can each just divide and conquer and start to email to some of these organizations.
Ask a question?
Sure.
The QR code that's on the flyer, is that for registering for the event, or is that our commission QR code?
That goes to the
Our website.
registry. That goes
Okay.
to the registry. There's a link for our website, and there's also, I put the actual link in there because some people might not scan. So I wanted to have the actual.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
I just wanted to know for the purpose of the bookmark. So I don't use this one because that's just for the registration. Got it.
Do you need a QR code for that, Janice, or are you all set?
No, I just wanted to know if it was this one, but it's not this one. So we can, my daughter's going to help me with the graphics. She's a graphic design person. So she said all set, but I wanted to make sure that wasn't the one I was supposed to use. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? I'm sort of handicapped here. I cannot see you. So, Yes, when it works, it's great. And when it doesn't, it's a definite problem.
Yep.
If not, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, I would.
Is that Lorna?
Before
No.
we do that, I just need us to approve the minutes from the January meeting.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Thank
right.
you.
And I have
Make a
one-
motion that we approve the minutes of the January meeting.
I second him. Darcy.
That's January 24th meeting, correct?
Right.
Yep.
And I have one quick request. Jen, can you send me the file that you have that has the tablecloth options? Because that will be useful designing the bookmark.
Yes, I made that in Illustrator. Does that mean anything to you?
It doesn't, but it probably will to my daughter.
Okay, I'll send you that if you need it in a different file type. Just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you
Cool.
so much.
Yep.
Okay, and so we will, whatever information I get from the T-stop in regard to the tablecloth and from the school department in regard to the COVID, I will send that out via our commission website just to bring everybody up to speed on where we are and start to compile the list of organizations and I'll send that out to everybody as well. And if you have contacts at some of these places that you feel that you would rather, it would be better for you to reach out, then that's how we'll divide them up.
So have you decided not to go with Sardella signs?
I haven't decided anything. I'm trying to get a quote from a T-stop just to make, we have no idea, we know what Sardella has given us for a price, but we don't have anything to compare it to. So,
Well, personally, I would go with that. Only not because I did it. It was for the commission, but because he has worked with us on that. That's up to you.
Yeah, well, have you heard from T-Stop? Because he said he owed you a call back, so I thought
Never
maybe where
called.
I didn't hear you had heard him. No, all right.
Called, you're wasting, sorry, you're wasting time by doing that, is what I would like to say.
Well, I would, obviously we don't have a lot more time to wait. So, but the other piece of this is, and Ed, maybe you can answer this. Do you know when the state is, we were waiting for the state to ratify town meeting or whatever it was they were supposed to do, because in the last town meeting, we had changed, the commission's name is being changed, and we're in a holding pattern to do that publicly until town meeting gets whatever it happens, it gets ratified or whatever.
It needs to pass through the Attorney General's office, and at last, my understanding is that's not been completed yet. But Jen, I think you are tuned into that as well, right? I don't believe we've heard anything from the AG's office just yet.
Yeah, if I would ask Sherry, that's definitely not my area of expertise, but when I did check in with her a couple of weeks ago, when you wanted your website updated, I did change the URL, by the way. So the URL is updated.
That's correct. Thank you.
What's on it still says the word issues, but I would check in with her to see what the turnaround time generally is.
Nice
and how big of a deal it is if there's a tablecloth with it. Like I just noticed your website is Disability Commission. I mean your email address, which isn't either of those names. So.
Right, and that's the email address the town gave us. I think before we even went forward to make this change. So, yeah. I'm going to call it a branding thing. So we're not officially having the issues removed, but for branding purposes, we're removing it because, at some point we got to move forward with this stuff.
I think Town Council Mullen would not have any issue with that, especially if it was a bonding. And I do think it's really just more of a perfunctory step by the Attorney General's office to just
Yep.
process it through. It's more clerical, if you will, in nature, ultimately. So I don't expect there should be any issues, but we can certainly follow up with Sherry on that.
Okay, I will find out. And yeah, it's been months. How long does it usually take for them to do this? But yeah, red tape. Okay, then thank you all. And again, let's try it again. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
Thank you, Lois. And someone to second it?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll all be in touch via email to keep Intelligent Lives moving forward. So we'll talk soon.